Today for Devotions with Daniela, we are reading from the second book of Daniela. Let's see where the Spirit lands us. Missionizing in the military. Missionizing is my term for weaponizing the mission. One thing that resonates deeply for many of us who've been through both cults and the military is the American military's laser focus on the mission, especially when it mirrors the familiar values we were raised with. This is Chapter 3, Transcendent Mission. That call to duty taps into the part of us that craves a purpose so compelling that we're willing to give everything, even our lives, to serve it. For many of us, that readiness to sacrifice ourselves has been ingrained in us since childhood, growing up in the various armies of God. So sacrificing ourselves for a cause later in life, whether as soldiers or in more extreme acts of dedication, comes naturally. Take Aaron Bushnell, for example. He grew up in an apocalyptic Christian community, served in the military, and eventually sacrificed himself in the most extreme way imaginable. In February 2024, Aaron chose self-immolation as his protest, the ultimate sacrifice, when he set himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., screaming "Free Palestine" while wearing Air Force fatigues and standing at the position of attention. A soldier to the end. Air Force. In 2025, 2 domestic terror attacks carried out by military veterans on New Year's Day brought renewed attention to an alarming finding from the University of Maryland's 2023 National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism. Having a U.S. military background is the single strongest individual level predictor of whether a subject is classified as a mass casualty offender, far outpacing mental health issues, prior criminal history, or social isolation. Researchers found that individuals with military backgrounds were 2.4 times more likely to commit mass casualty extremist violence when compared to those without military experience. Military culture, training, and the challenges of reintegration into civilian life can create unique vulnerabilities for radicalization if left unaddressed. The missionizing in the U.S. military dates back to World War II, a conflict often remembered as a time of national unity, but the public was significantly divided about entering the war, even after Pearl Harbor. Elizabeth Samet, in Searching for the Good War, highlights how the myth of the greatest generation overshadows the reality of divided opinions and the military's struggle to motivate soldiers reluctant to use deadly force. The solution wasn't better training, but appeals to masculinity, honor, and racialized patriotism, framing soldiers as heroic liberators who were part of something bigger than themselves. This manipulation shaped soldiers' identities to make the mission seem larger than life, and it persists today. Military rhetoric often mirrors the tone of religious sermons, invoking a messianic view of soldiers as protectors of America's inherent goodness. Samet captures this perfectly when she says, "Only by the magic alchemy of American exceptionalism can war be made to seem an act of love." In the chaos and trauma of war, creating a myth, a simple narrative to cling to, becomes a natural response, and World War II offered the temptation of myth to every country involved. The narrative of a righteous cause, of being a hero and saving the world, is a powerful tool for rallying people, in the military or in religion. While some causes may certainly be just, leaders can also use the narrative manipulatively to suppress doubt, justify harm, or demand unquestioning loyalty. And what that means is, even when you are us versus them, even when you are against something like fascism, you still need to be aware of being manipulated. You still need to be aware of dehumanizing the enemy that you're fighting. Those are all things that are not good to do. Once established, a heroic narrative supported the military's shift toward a missionized approach, motivating soldiers with ideological reasons, like in the War on Terror, rather than their duties as soldiers. Vietnam presented a significant challenge to this mindset as the mission became increasingly hard to justify, leading to an all-time low in military morale. Samet illustrates how World War II profoundly shapes the public's perception of the Vietnam War. If World War II seemed like a good war, what did that make the war in Vietnam that most Americans seemed to disagree with? She quotes Jean LaRocque, a retired rear admiral during the Vietnam era, who reflected, "We see things in terms of World War II, which in a sense was a good war, but the twisted memory of it encourages the men of my generation to be willing, almost eager, to use military force anywhere in the world." This shift toward ideological justification shows that the good war myth of World War II reshaped American military motivations and led to a distorted sense of purpose in conflicts like Vietnam, Korea, Latin America, and repeatedly in the Middle East. Just like in Vietnam, where defining a clear, winnable mission was problematic, the wars in the Middle East have always been vague in their objectives. Yet we clung to the belief that we were there for a righteous cause. 9/11 became our motivational touchstone, a moment we could point to and say, "See, we are fighting for America." The mission of the United States military is to fight and win America's wars. So we told ourselves that everything we were doing was in service of that mission. We had been conditioned, much like those who had been motivated by the good war myth, to see ourselves as soldiers in a battle that was always necessary, even if victory felt elusive. By we, I mean America, but I also mean my husband and me, who spent a collective 7 years in the Middle East on active duty. In today's military, we see an almost religious devotion to the image of the soldier. Brave, honorable, sacrificing everything for an unquestionably noble mission. Protecting America, a country often perceived, by Americans, as inherently good. Without knowing anything about their actual experiences, we offer up automatic "thank you for your service" to anyone in uniform, as if the mere act of serving is enough to prove someone's virtue. This echoes cult-like adoration, where the mission is beyond reproach and questioning it feels like blasphemy. In addition to the allure of honor, soldiers also experience a kind of intensity addiction, much like in any cult, fueled in part by ideological commitment, which keeps us searching for the next mission. Without that mission, without that cause, we don't know who we are. As Sean Patrick Hughes wrote in the Washington Post, "This life is hard to stop living, and the fallen of my generation, more times than not, fell before they had a chance to try. And too many more fell after they left, failing to find the purpose or the drive they once felt at war." That addictive need for intensity and purpose is what many people struggle with once the mission is over. For some, like my younger brother, this void becomes unbearable. He was only 30 when he passed, unable to find that sense of purpose and drive outside of the intense structure that the Army, and before that, the cult, had given him. Culting of America is on pre-sale now. You can get signed copies attached here. And yes, there will be an audiobook. I'm recording it next month. Have a day. Cool Knitting Cult Lady stickers attached here.